Emma divorced the husband she believed was broke, secretive, and unwilling to build a better life with her. But only 6 weeks later, one shocking news article revealed the truth she never expected. Daniel wasn't an ordinary logistics worker. He was the hidden founder of a massive company worth nearly $200 million, and he had concealed everything because he feared being loved only for his fortune. A year later, they unexpectedly met again. This time, there were no secrets, no headlines, and no promises. Only two wounded people finally speaking honestly and wondering whether their story was truly over. Emma Collins had married for love, not money, and for the first 3 years, that had been enough. But love doesn't pay rent, and lately, it felt like Daniel's paycheck barely covered anything at all. Daniel worked as a logistics coordinator for a small shipping company downtown. At least, that's what he told everyone. He left every morning at 7 a.m. in the same gray sedan, wore the same 3 button-down shirts on rotation, and came home every night looking tired but strangely calm, never stressed about money the way Emma constantly was. "We can't keep living like this," Emma said one evening, sliding a stack of unpaid bills across the kitchen table. "The mortgage is late again, Daniel. Again." He barely looked up from his laptop. "I told you, it's handled." "Handled how? You make $40,000 a year. I make 32. We are not handling anything." Daniel closed his laptop gently. "Emma, trust me. Just give it time." That phrase, "give it time," had become his answer to everything. When she wanted a real vacation, not a weekend camping trip. When she wanted new furniture instead of the second-hand couch with the sagging cushion. When her sister Rachel bought a house with her husband, an actual investment banker, and Emma sat at Thanksgiving dinner smiling through her jealousy. Rachel didn't make it easy. "Still renting?" she'd asked last month, swirling her wine. "I just don't understand how Daniel isn't further along by now. He's what, 34? Emma had laughed it off then. She wasn't laughing anymore. What ate at her most wasn't the bills, it was the secrecy. Daniel took calls in the garage with the door shut. He had a second phone she wasn't supposed to know about. She'd found it once, in his gym bag, locked with a passcode she couldn't guess. When she asked about it, he said it was for work. When she asked what kind of work needed 2 phones, he changed the subject. Something wasn't right. And after 4 years of marriage, Emma was done accepting "give it time" as an answer. She began quietly meeting with a lawyer, not because she wanted to end things, not yet, but because she needed to understand what she actually had, financially, if this marriage fell apart. What she discovered stunned her. No joint savings account. No retirement fund in his name that she could find. No property. On paper, Daniel Collins looked like a man with nothing. "He's hiding something," she told her lawyer, "and I think it's about to get worse before it gets better." She had no idea how right, and how wrong, she was. 3 weeks later, Emma filed. She didn't do it out of hatred, she did it out of exhaustion, of being lied to, of scraping by while her husband disappeared into locked rooms and secret calls, of watching her sister's life move forward while hers stood frozen in place. Daniel came home that Tuesday to find the papers on the kitchen table, next to a note. "I can't keep living in the dark, Daniel, I'm sorry." He didn't call her. He didn't text. He simply signed them. That silence hurt more than any argument could have. Emma had almost hoped he'd fight for her, beg her to stay, finally explain the secrecy, give her some reason to believe there was more to him than a tired man in a gray sedan. Instead, she got a signature and a moving truck 2 weeks later. Rachel, of course, had opinions. "Honestly, good for you," she said over coffee. "You deserve someone who can actually provide. Someone like Marcus." She meant her own husband, the investment banker, and she wasn't shy about the comparison. Emma nodded along, though something in her chest didn't feel like relief. It felt like freefall. The divorce moved fast, faster than she expected, given how little there was to divide. No house, no shared accounts, just a modest apartment lease in Daniel's name and furniture they split without argument. Daniel requested nothing. He asked for no alimony, no possessions, not even the framed photos from their wedding still sitting in a box in the closet. He didn't even want the coffee table, Emma told her lawyer, almost laughing at how anticlimactic it all was. 4 years, and it ends with him not wanting a coffee table. The final court date came on a gray Thursday morning. Daniel showed up in a suit Emma had never seen before. Well-tailored, dark navy, nothing like his usual work clothes. She almost asked where he got it. She didn't. They exchanged no words outside the courtroom. Just a brief, unreadable glance before he turned and walked toward a black car waiting at the curb. A car she didn't recognize, driven by someone she'd never met. Emma told herself it didn't matter anymore. Whatever Daniel Collins had been hiding, it was his business now, not hers. She was wrong. It was about to become very public, and very hard to ignore. 6 weeks after the divorce was finalized, Emma's phone would not stop buzzing. It started with a text from Rachel. "Emma, are you seeing this? Call me now." Then a link. A business news article, headline first. Daniel Cole Whitfield, reclusive founder of Whitfield Logistics Group, steps into public role after years operating under alias. Emma read the name 3 times. Daniel Cole Whitfield, not Daniel Collins. The article detailed a man who had built a private logistics and freight tech company from nothing in his 20s, grown it quietly for over a decade, and deliberately avoided public attention, using a modified version of his name, driving ordinary cars, living in ordinary apartments, after a leer, highly public relationship had ended in a devastating tabloid scandal and a lawsuit that cost him millions and his privacy. He'd rebuilt everything under the radar, terrified of it happening again. His net worth, according to the article, was estimated at just under $200 million. There were photos, him in that same navy suit from the courthouse, shaking hands at a company event, same face, same eyes, unmistakably her ex-husband. Emma sat frozen at her kitchen table, the one where she'd once slid unpaid bills toward him, and demanded answers. Rachel called, breathless. "Emma? Is this real? Is this him?" "It's him," Emma whispered. "You divorced a multimillionaire over a late mortgage payment?" Emma didn't answer. She was scrolling further and found something that hit even harder, a short quote near the bottom of the article, from Daniel himself. "I stayed quiet because the last time people knew who I really was, I lost everything that mattered. I wanted, for once, to be loved for exactly nothing, not my money, not my name. I'm not sure I ever got that, but I'm ready to stop hiding." She read it twice, 3 times. He hadn't been hiding money out of selfishness. He'd been protecting himself and testing, in his own quiet, flawed way, whether she loved him or the idea of a comfortable life. And when the bills piled up and she filed for divorce over what she thought was his failure to provide, she had, without knowing it, confirmed his deepest fear. Emma put her phone down, hands trembling. She hadn't just lost a struggling husband. She had lost, and possibly proven right, a man who'd spent years wondering if anyone could ever love him without knowing what he was worth. The story didn't stay contained to one article. Within days, it was everywhere. Business blogs, finance YouTube channels, even a segment on local news. The secret millionaire next door, and the divorce that made headlines. Emma became, unwillingly, part of the story. Old coworkers reached out. A distant cousin she hadn't spoken to in years suddenly wanted to catch up. Rachel, to Emma's disbelief, tried to arrange a lunch with Daniel directly. For the family, she said, though everyone knew that wasn't the real reason. Emma refused. Whatever chance existed for anything, it wasn't going to be built through her sister's ambition. She tried reaching Daniel once. A short text. "I didn't know. I'm sorry. Not about the divorce, but that I never gave you a reason to tell me the truth." He didn't respond for 4 days. When he finally did, it was brief. "I know. It wasn't only your fault. I built the silence long before I built anything with you. That was it. No demand to meet. No reconciliation offer. Just an acknowledgement. Quiet and final, that some damage doesn't reverse itself just because the truth finally surfaces. Emma went back to her ordinary life. The same apartment, the same job at the marketing firm, the same modest paycheck. But it wasn't the same anymore. Every conversation now carried an unspoken question. Did she know? Was she after the money? Why didn't she stay? She didn't owe anyone an explanation, but the whispers followed her anyway. At work, at family gatherings, even at the grocery store where a cashier recognized her from a screenshot circulating online. Meanwhile, Daniel's company continued its public transformation. New interviews. A cautious, guarded man, learning, slowly, how to exist without the disguise he'd hidden behind for over a decade. He mentioned Emma once, in a follow-up piece, carefully. She wasn't wrong to want honesty. I just wasn't ready to give it. It wasn't blame. It wasn't forgiveness either. It was simply the truth, laid out plainly, the way neither of them had managed to do while they were still married. Emma read that line more times than she'd admit, and for the first time since the divorce, she let herself wonder, not about his money, never about his money, but about what might have happened if he'd trusted her just 6 months sooner. A year passed. Emma had rebuilt her routine, new apartment, small promotion at work, a life that finally felt like her own, rather than something waiting to be rescued. She'd stopped checking the news for Daniel's name, mostly. Then, one evening in early autumn, she saw him, not in a headline, but in person, at a small bookstore cafe, 3 blocks from her new apartment. No entourage, no navy suit, just a gray sweater, a coffee, and a paperback novel, looking more like the Daniel she'd married than the man from the articles. He saw her before she could decide whether to leave. Emma. His voice was careful, like he wasn't sure if the name still belonged to him in her world. Daniel. She hesitated at his table. Or is it? Daniel's fine, he said, almost smiling. It's who I actually want to be now. Whitfield was armor. I'm trying to stop needing it. She sat, against her own better judgment. They talked. Not about money, not about the divorce, not about the headlines that had turned both their lives inside out. They talked about the small things they used to talk about, before the silence between them had grown so wide, neither of them noticed it swallowing the marriage whole. I'm not asking for anything, Daniel said eventually. I know what it looked like. I know what it cost you, being tangled up in all of this because of choices I made before I even knew you. I just wanted you to know it was never about not trusting you specifically. I didn't trust anyone, not fully, not since before. Emma nodded slowly. I filed because I thought you were failing to try. Not because I needed the money. I needed to feel like I mattered enough to be told the truth. I know that now, he said. Took losing you to learn it. Neither of them fixed everything in that conversation. There was no dramatic reconciliation, no sudden remarriage, no perfect ending wrapped in a bow. But there was something quieter and maybe more honest. 2 people finally speaking plainly to each other, a year too late for the marriage, but perhaps not too late for whatever came next. As Emma walked home that evening, she thought about Rachel's old comment, "You deserve someone who can actually provide." She realized now that she'd never wanted a provider. She'd wanted a partner who trusted her enough to be seen. Whether Daniel could ever fully be that person, she didn't know yet, but for the first time in over a year, she wasn't afraid to find out. Sometimes the greatest heartbreak isn't losing someone. It's realizing what could have been if just one honest conversation had happened sooner. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more emotional romance dramas every week. Tell us in the comments, if you were Emma, would you have given Daniel another chance? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.